It is said that an old man lived in a remote village. He was the saddest person on earth, to the point that all the villagers were tired of him. He was constantly frustrated, never stopped complaining and grumbling, and not a day passed without him being seen in a bad mood. The older he got, the worse and more negative his speech became. Even the inhabitants of the village avoided him as much as possible. His misfortune became contagious, and it was impossible for anyone to maintain their happiness in his presence. He spread feelings of sadness and unhappiness to everyone around him. However, one day when the old man reached 80, something strange happened, and a peculiar rumor began to spread. The old man is happy today. He is not complaining about anything. A smile is on his face. His features have even brightened and changed. The villagers gathered at the old man's house, and one of them questioned him, asking, "What happened to you?" It was then that the old man replied, "Nothing important. I spent 80 years chasing happiness in vain, and then I decided to live without it and enjoy my life. That's why I'm happy now." It is said that there was a wise man to whom people from all over came to consult. However, they kept telling him about the same problems and difficulties they had, until he grew tired of it. One day, the wise man gathered them together and shared a funny joke with them, causing everyone to burst out laughing. A few minutes later, he repeated the same joke, and a few of them smiled. Yet, as soon as he repeated the joke a third time, no one laughed. Then the wise man smiled and said, "You cannot laugh at the same joke more than once. So why do you keep complaining and crying about the same problems every time?" The story takes place around two friends who were walking in the middle of the desert. At some point during their trip, they got into an argument, and one slapped the other in the face. The one who was hit felt great pain and sadness, but without saying a word, he wrote on the sand, "Today my best friend slapped me in the face." They then continued walking until they reached a beautiful oasis. There they decided to take a bath in the oasis lake, but the young man who had been slapped earlier got stuck in a muddy swamp and began to drown. His friend rushed to him and saved him. It was then that the young man, who was almost drowning on a large rock, wrote the following sentence, "Today my close friend saved my life." And here, the friend who had slapped him and saved him asked him, "After hurting you, you write on the sand, and now you write on the rock. So why?" The young man replied, "When someone hurts us, we must write his abuse on the sand so that the wind of oblivion erases it. But when someone does us a favor, we must engrave it on the rock so that we never forget it, and that the wind never erases it." It is said that one day a beautiful rose lived in the middle of an arid desert. The rose was very proud of herself and seduced by her beauty, but only one thing bothered her, the presence of an ugly cactus next to her. Every day the rose cursed the cactus and reproached him for his ugliness and unattractive appearance, while the cactus did not utter a word, remaining silent and calm. Other plants tried to advise the rose and bring her to her senses, but to no avail. And so, until the arrival of summer and the intensification of heat and drought. So, the rose began to wither. Its leaves withered and lost their bright, succulent colors. The rose looked at her neighbor, the cactus. Then she saw a bird approaching her and sticking its beak into it to drink a little of the water that was stored there. Although she was very ashamed of herself, the rose asked the cactus to give her water to quench her thirst, and the cactus immediately agreed, thus helping her neighbor to resist and survive in this extreme heat and drought.